Good morning. Today is Saturday, the 26th of March. It is a cloudy day. It's in the high 40s, so it's not that bad out. Today we are in the local vigilance area. Same thing going on. The logging part of the area is still having that happen. So we are finding alternative ways in and all that. So it is us kind of adapting to a less than perfect situation here. But as the weather gets warmer, I'm trying to get some feelers as to what the nature of the northern areas are like again, and I have still plans to go to the western side of the state and do some recon out that way. But I think for today we are going to do what's called a story time about something that happened during the week that I'm still amused by. Some observations offered there and the like. So we're going to get moving and check around in this area again, find what we find, and we'll do that while we're in the course of looking around. Thanks. Okay, we're back, and we are adapting to the fact that it's a little easier to track in the snow, but I have already seen some whitetail tracks in the mud, so it's not completely impossible to find tracks in here. The mud and the soft ground do leave indents anyway. You just got to look a little more closely on that note. The odds of finding like rodent tracks and that kind of thing at this point are probably that much harder, but again, the other thing to be aware of this time of year, because it is two things actually. One, it is in the upper 40s and low 50s up here so far today, which means one, ticks are a factor as they come out, and two, bears are a factor as well. Last week I was more aware of bears, but ticks as well, but didn't run into any bear sign this week or last week so far. But just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not about. There's a cool looking tree right there, huh? That's a bizarre looking thing. I'm going to probably have to take a picture of that. Hold on. Before we get into my story time, I'm actually going to do that, so bear with me for a second. Okay, we're back. So the amusing anecdote from the week kind of plays into last week's theme about the generators of white noise and all that. I've beaten on that subject more than I really would like to, but it isn't really going anywhere, so it's easier said than done. But this is kind of a Facebookism. Back in the day, there was a time when somebody would start a group and they would just randomly invite, say, 50 people into the group just to give it a population. And kind of in effect, they grab your account and kidnap you into the group until you get all grumpy about it and leave. But they could just add you to the group without your permission, and all of a sudden you're getting notifications from this group that you never asked to join. Since then, the Zucker police have kind of locked it down a little bit, and you are kind of invited to the group instead of being just grabbed and thrown in it without being asked. But every now and then I get invited into these little I'm going to call it a pocket universe group, where they're all, because they're almost always like private groups. So if you weren't invited into it, you probably wouldn't even know it was there. And the one that I had an interaction with this week is probably, it would have been just as well that I didn't, because it wasn't really worth my time. So I get invited into the group, dear poo, and I probably got invited into the group maybe a month and a half ago, so I wasn't in there that long. Wasn't really paying that much attention to it. But I noticed a thread where, of all things, Todd Standing came up. And I expressed the obvious opinion of Todd Standing and his digitally mastered Muppets, of one of which has been proven to be him. Come to find out that Todd Standing is very well regarded in this group. It's basically a group of Todd worshippers, for lack of a better word. And so there was pushback. There was mixed opinions. There were people actually in there that saw the obvious, saw the light. I'm going to stick near the pond today. And stated the obvious. I mean, but they're like, well, the Muppets, people call him the Muppet King for a reason, because his little Muppets are that obviously fake. The male is him. People like Steve Kulls have done background checks into the whole situation and found that he, and I forget if it's his wife, his sister, or another family member, have controlling interest in a CGI-based special effects company. So if that isn't damning, what the hell is? You just happen to have the one clear picture of something that looks radically different from the creature that I saw, number one. We have a new beaver dam over there, or beaver lodge over there. On the far side right there. That's new in the last couple of weeks. But you had a couple of people and they're like, prove it, show the proof that it's fake. My response to that is very simple. I see absolutely no reason or purpose served in reinventing the wheel. Kulls and others have already kind of made this. They've done the legwork, and there's no reason to redo it. I mean, you can show this to these people, and I doubt they're going to change their minds. They want it to be real. They want the Standing to be real. They don't see that he sullied Les Stroud's reputation with his nonsense. They don't see him for the arrogant, hoaxing POS that he is. You can't cure stupid. It is, I'm sorry, if you think that he's legit, you're being hoodwinked, and there's a point when you have to take responsibility for being hoodwinked. But it got creepy a little bit too, because the argument as it was fine. This one guy, and I couldn't help but notice that he was a Canadian, so I don't know if this is a matter of like Todd being the hometown boy or something. But, he just prove it. And I'm trying to just, make the point that I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's been done. You'll see it for what it is, or you won't. Or you'll see it for what you want it to be. But then things kind of escalated a little bit, and all of a sudden he's stalking my profile on a couple of different social media platforms and making comments about my personal life. And I don't get. Somebody in the Bigfooting world disagrees with your take on something, and then the stalking begins. And I've seen this happen a number of times with other people too. I'm not going to delve into past occurrences, but this is not the first time that this has happened to me, where somebody has stalked me over a Bigfooting dispute. But this is where the reputation of the community kind of precedes itself, and this is why I personally don't take the community very seriously. You really can't. But he only went so far as to stalk my, I'm guessing my YouTube and my Facebook, but in the past, I've had people track down my home address and family members and things of this nature and approach my nephew at a point in time when he was still a minor. Things that are not cool. And this is all over a dispute over Bigfoot. And speaking of a certain well-known Bigfooter that I have already mentioned a couple of times in this podcast, if they're listening, I'm referring to the situation circa 2013 when these things occurred. My personal life was intruded upon. So we disagree over something that the mainstream of society doesn't even take seriously, and you use that as justification for stalking. I'm not trying to play victim here either. I'm just pointing out these things do occur. Never once in the course of these shenanigans, these very illegal shenanigans, did I ever feel overly threatened. That's not the point. But I think you can understand that's not really the point. The point is, you feel justified in intruding on somebody's personal life. That is kind of BS. And that's where things go too far. I've had, speaking of the 2013 situation, I have had people that I know were affiliated with the person behind the stalking at a grand level who actually tried to approach me on LinkedIn and situations where they could delve into my job situation as well. And this person that I'm referring to, without naming them, has done this to other people. At a time when we were better, like more on better terms, when we were closer to being friends, she did this to a person living in another country. And probably promptly walked away from it when the person freaked out, but it doesn't change the fact that they were guilty of this. And has since hopefully walked away from the subject altogether, because they are basically the poster child for the ugliness that this subject apparently does to some people. I don't understand why, but it does happen. There was a video, just to make a point kind of related. There was a gentleman from another channel a few weeks ago that he has a younger channel, and he came into my comment section and was critical of some of what I said and such. And needless to say, he's a person more oriented towards the woo end of the spectrum. For those that are not in the know, woo refers to the belief that Bigfoot-related things are more paranormal than flesh and blood, and, to each your own. But I had made a video responding to him, and then I decided not to publish it because that is what kind of encourages this kind of ugliness to occur, and I just never really got around to making a priority out of getting it out online, and I've made that decision that I'm not going to. If you want to obsess on stick structures everywhere, if you look in here, this is a stick structure playground. There's no shortage of deadfall. We covered this in a couple of videos. But G is for gravity. And until I see compelling evidence of a monkey-looking person arranging sticks as part of some art project in the woods, that is very much conjecture. And a lot of what people take as the everyday background noise of the subject is conjecture. I think I covered wood knocks last week too. There are a lot of things in the woods that sound like wood knocks. And an actual wood knock versus, say, hunting season and various types of gunfire versus wood pops in extremely cold weather, etc., etc. There is a distinct, very nuanced subtlety. So I do understand why people mistake non-wood knock related sounds for wood knocks, but the point is, wood knocks themselves, as far as we know, are the conjecture of Matt Moneymaker, and to my knowledge, no one has ever actually produced video evidence or photo evidence of, again, a monkey-looking person whacking on a tree with yet another piece of tree or similar, let alone why they would do such a thing. I mean, there's a lot of conjecture saying it's signaling back and forth, and there's a plausibility if they're smart enough to do that, but it's still conjecture, like it or not. But getting back to this particular group of people, I ended up leaving the group because I don't really want to have, I mean, the fact that the stalking happened after one spat over Todd Standing is sufficient grounds for me to say, you know what, I really just don't need these people in my life. 2013 was educational as far as how far people will go to stalk and be creepy and then play the victim all the more, which is kind of amusing, but and should that well-known Bigfooter decide to want to tell me behind the scenes to keep the peace again, no. That is not your call. You need to be made to understand that is not your call. So that's my story time. I was invited into an interestingly wackadoodle group. Got into a petty disagreement over a known hoaxer who I'm not going to argue the pros and cons of because that's a waste of time. And in the end, got stalked briefly and decided I just don't want to get into it with this particular gentleman and went on my way. With any luck, that'll be the end of any of my dealings with them. And the next time that if you're out, here's the thing, if you're out there and you have a differing opinion on the subject than I do, and you are running some little private echo chamber of a group, my advice to you would be this. Basically, take the time to look into the background of the people that you want to invite into your group if you do, in fact, want an echo chamber. And embrace the fact that if you don't want to have differing opinions in the group, maybe you check out and see who you're inviting in, because it's a fair bet that I was not the perfect fit for this particular group. They have a different take on the subject, and on a night when I come home from work and I'm prone to want to argue, it doesn't really help anybody, least of all myself. So, just a little advice for people that run groups and don't want to have your little, if you want an echo chamber, then run the place like an echo chamber and you'll be happier for it. But the stalking shit, though, is never justified. And I will say this to any who want to listen and interpret as they see fit, and that is that if I ever reach a situation to the point of the 2013 situation again, I will be more than happy to involve the police and see people do time for their indiscretions and make it all the more clear that as much as you think you can hide on the internet, it's a lot easier to find people these days because people are deadly stupid with the amount of shit that they share on social media. So it's not hard for the cops to find you. if you're playing games like that. And I'll leave that there and move on to rosier subjects. But that's a little bit of why I wanted to tell that story time, because if the gentleman I got into it with last week is listening to this, stalking people is creepy. It's not okay. So what you did during the week is probably not that illegal, but it shows a propensity that you're willing to track down and make life uncomfortable for people that won't listen to your arguments. You should stop, because that's not right. I guess we're kind of in that weird changing of seasons where it gets warm again. So, again, I already gave the advice: be bear aware, be tick aware. Permethrin for your clothes, best apply it a day or two before you head out. Same with your gear. Do not put it on yourself. Permethrin is a very effective tick-killing bug repellent, but it is also a neurotoxin. That's why you put it on your clothes and you let it dry in, so it's not in a liquid form when it touches you. In a dry form, it is safe and tested. If you put it right on your skin and you get a massive irritation from it, well, you didn't read the instructions. So it is one of those things that is deadly effective. It does work, but you have to read the instructions. DEET for your skin. It is a potential carcinogen over time. So put it on, come home, wash it off, obviously. And moving on to the change of the seasons, this area has been quiet. I think the logging around the corner has probably put the kibosh on any real chance for activity beyond a point, because it has been quiet. I was just over there today to check on the situation, and there's nobody there apparently logging today, but there are signs everywhere that read closed to the public. So the fact is that I don't know how, I guess militant is the right word, they are in enforcing this order. They say it's for safety's sake, and that's okay. I don't know if it's like a limited liability, like you get in there, you get hurt for some reason based on logging, and that you can't sue. But I don't think it's worth a risk of a criminal trespass charge if they're going to get that nasty in enforcing things. Deer track. But the reason I'm not showing them is it's basically just a dent in the mud. It's not really anything that spectacular to look at. But with warmer weather and the desire for newer locations and the like, I am going to be heading north and west in regard to local areas and act on some information to confirm or deny based on the fact I'm skeptical of the source. And I still remain very, very tempted to make a visit to the Bridgewater Triangle on a debunking mission, because there are people in another group that obsess on it. And I just can't buy the fact that you have a Bigfoot population south of Boston in the suburbs. It is just that's like the epitome of somebody just wanting something to be there without looking at all the scientific things that you would need to have to come together to have this be possible. They don't want to hear that. But I'm tempted to go there on a debunking mission. We're going to jump across the screen here real quick and have a look over here if it's not all slick and doesn't get me all wet, which would suck. But this is pretty basic tame stuff. So we're going to be up in that area, which is, well, it's a large area, so there's bits and pieces not far off of the Appalachian Trail that run through what I'll call the tri-state area, which is basically Connecticut, Mass, and New York. A couple of areas up in there I haven't been in a while. maybe worth a look. And one of the areas actually does have some folklore that I was previously unaware of until recent years, which alone is kind of interesting. Going through this area too, because points of interest, somebody actually has made a, I'm not going to say it's illegal, but there are a fire ring in there, so people do get in here, maybe hunters or people that just like to get out away from everybody. Because we are at this point a good ways. You see, well, you've seen how long I've been walking, so we were a little ways in at this point. Along the third of the Tribog area. Well, this is more of a meadow than a wetland, but and depending on the snowpack report going north, I don't really want to, given the level of gas prices of late, waste a trip up there too early, but we're due to get back up there and resume that operation. I think I already mentioned I'm planning a 3-day hike in early May to cover some ground to the west of the area that I'm normally in, to try to catch up to the trail of the family unit that I had been tracking for a couple of years. Last year they proved to be elusive, so we need to try to find them again, or find number 3, and he's more elusive anyway, though. He's harder to find. I think I found a track of his last year, but it's like one of those that wasn't with enough definition that you can be sure, but or you can just go into a studio and make CGI Muppets like Todd does, and then have your worshippers in your little secret groups and echo chambers just sing your praises. Not to harp on that, folks. I just the guy started stalking me, and that's something I won't put up with that anymore. I'm not willing to have people get all bullied. I mean, the point to that, just to beat the dead horse one last time, is this. Some people take this way too seriously and they try to make a living out of it or something. It's a hobby to me. I am not going to get stalked over a fucking hobby. That's not going to happen like that. If that's a problem, oh well. Because if you want to go down that road, yeah, hunters have found their way in here too. So you see a little shelter thing over there. I see hunter tape right on it, so that tells me that might be a... As much as you think Bigfoot makes stick structures, deer hunters make what they call debris huts and the like too. So one can't discount people's. And this case and point, where is it? I'm assuming it was on camera. A piece of hunter tape right there. So they shelter down in this little area and hope that Bambi comes walking by and they get a clean shot. What else? I was looking at the local state laws regarding bow hunting and considering getting back into that as kind of an adjunct of this. Add another element to the channel, perhaps. I have to renew my fishing license too. I keep forgetting to do that. Not that I got fishing that much last year, but I did make a point of getting... I'm just rambling at this point. I'll take a break in a minute. I got a fishing license for both Connecticut and Vermont because I actually know more out-of-the-way fishing spots in Vermont than I do locally, if that isn't ironic to someone. But it's a shame this area is quiet because this is good habitat. You're in an area where you have... I mean, there are houses to the south of here. There's like one house to the east of here if you want to go a mile or more at this point. But in between, the sticky filling in between, there's all this. And you could actually hide a small... You could hide an individual or a pair or like a small family unit in an area this big and have them not be noticed for at least a time if they were passing through. I mean, if you look at this, we're not anywhere near people's right now, in spite of the fact that there are deer hunters that know their way in here. But that's the thing, deer hunters, I'm thinking bow hunters, are typically the ones that'll go way the hell in, and that's why I like the idea of getting back into that, because one can. The thing is, if I do that, I have to act pretty quickly because the April season's coming up. Otherwise, I might as well wait out the summer and do it for the fall, when you have the longer season anyway. I ought to check into what Vermont has for that too. Like all the Massachusetts Elmer Fudd guys do. Okay, so there's this. An example of some interesting structures out here. That does kind of sort of qualify as a structure, with the caveat that, again, we are walking by hunter's tape within 30 feet of this area. So, again, there are things of that nature out here, yes, but you have to allow for the more mundane source of them too. A lot of them, I'm sorry, it's gravity, snow load, that kind of thing. I know people want to believe otherwise. I don't hold to such an easy definition of it. But we had hunter's tape too, so there are bow hunters that come in here. I presume them to be bow hunters. Most of your shotgun guys don't come in this deep. They stay on the trail, and or at least the obvious ones. Most of the guys I've run into that are like way in the woods, like out here, are usually bow hunters. That's my observation. And you got stuff like this. That looks more like something that fell out of the tree up there, or off of this. But yeah, there's interesting things in here. That's why I like this stretch of woods, because you have all this interesting little, you got this little debris playground going on. But a lot of it, there's deer track, we are definitely in a deer area though, because there's a lot of deer dents. Not deer tracks, because of the mud, I'm just going to call them deer dents. But there's a lot of them, so they do seem to like it in here. It's like a nice soft little, you got like a lot of the, let me show you. A lot of the soft, like pine needle stuff, and it's like, so it's nice and, gentle and tender. I didn't want to do that. Sorry. So it's a nice soft bedding area for them. There's my hunter's tape again. And I'm going to shortly be recrossing the stream, so I'm going to take a break. Again, I just wanted to show some of the structures in here that are here. If you, on the other hand, see them differently and want to share and comment in the comment section, please feel free. And I don't necessarily promise that we're going to agree, but I'm willing to hear out your opinions. Some of them are interesting, so why don't we do that, if you feel so inclined. I am going to take a break for a second. I'll be back in a bit when I get across the stream and maybe cover a little ground. Okay, we're back. We're on the other side of the stream now. We have fulfilled our mission of having, every time we're out, having a prerequisite picture of moose poo, and found a moose track, or a moose dent in the mud, in stuff basically like this. Soft mud. Interesting observation to offer though. Has anyone else ever been in the woods out here like this? And you can see it's a fairly level ground kind of an area, and have their ears pop? And wondered if that was like an infrasound thing. Wild speculation on my part, but that literally just happened. And you're not changing elevation in here, so it's not that interesting. Sorry. Also wondering if the camera's like a little choppy. Not having anything to do with my ears popping. I just noticed that the camera might be swiveling a little choppy. Wonder what that's about. But so as far as delving into the woo versus the lack of the woo, infrasound is actually one of the things I do give some credence to, because I've had a couple of occasions where that's probably a very plausible explanation for some weirdness. I have actually encountered weird shit before, believe it or not. Not always necessarily Bigfoot related. There's the electrical area in Vermont. That is a proven thing. I don't think it has diddly to do with Bigfoot, but one thing on my agenda, I don't know if I mentioned this prior to now, I did over the course of the winter get a metal detector on the advice of one of my Facebook buddies, and I am going to return to that area with the metal detector and go probing in the ground to see if there's anything in there, because there is a profound electrical field in that area, in a very condensed area, that is capable of... The predecessor to this camera died in that area, put it that way. Ambient static electricity in the air or similar fried my camera. And I don't promote staying in that area for prolonged periods of time, because I was actually reading, as I got the EMF reader that I have, they give the safety levels for both EMF and EF, and the interesting thing about the numbers being given off by the electrical field in this area are, it's not far from where the safety limit is. Prolonged exposure is probably not good for you. If it's enough to reset my phone twice and fry my camera, then it's something to be aware of. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back with both the EMF reader and a metal detector, because that is one thing on my agenda list to cross off the mystery of, because that is a genuine phenomenon in that area. And it's been there for 4 years concurrently, so there's something there doing that. I must know what that is. But infrasound, there's more moose poo. There you go. So yeah, there is a moose in here somewhere. Casually leaving his calling card, as he does. I am going to solve that, though. The electrical mystery is something that has interested me now for a few years, because it is definitely there. It's not a product of your imagination. And if you doubt me, I'll happily take you there with me. But if you have an expensive phone, I would say leave it in the car or turn it off. If you have a Samsung like I do, I would leave it at the car, because even when I turned it off last year, it came on and was doing odd things briefly. So the symptoms of that mystery, just while we're on the subject. My Samsung Galaxy 10 has been zapped to the point of a factory reset in the middle of nowhere, all by itself. No help from me, not once but twice. My drone, I will not fly again in there, because it just was not happy and almost went into a stream. It was just, wouldn't come out of safety mode. Was just like completely screwed up. And my gimbal camera, this model, fried completely. So, when I say fried, the camera wouldn't work anymore. The SD card was thoroughly corrupted. So there's something there. There's something to it. I don't for a second think it's Bigfoot related, but there is an anomaly in there. Viva the Bennington Triangle. As much as I'm mocking the Bridgewater Triangle. Which, if I go and I find something there, I will eat crow and apologize to those who believe, but Excuse me. So, yeah, once we get back up into the Vermont area, we're going to be covering some ground in there. That's one thing on the agenda. We're going to get a little deeper into an area that we started out at last, when was I there? Towards the end of November, I want to say. And I have three 3-day hikes planned for the summer, where I'm going to go through the middle, basically the lower, the middle, and then the upper parts of this area in a ever-increasing loop, and cover a lot of ground looking for signs of evidence of either the family unit or anyone else of a simian nature that's living in the area. And maybe renew efforts based on findings there. But I'm probably going to take a segment break right now because I'm kind of running out of things to ramble about. I wanted to mention the infrasound ear popping thing because that just literally happened right back there. It happens every now and then. Like I said, this is not that hilly an area. It's like a gradual slope, but it's a very, very gradual slope. And if you go further that way, yes, you start running right into the foothills of the Berkshires, where you get a lot more hilly, but in here, not so much. But coming back over to the beaver pond over here. Would help if it was actually aimed at the beaver pond.